Welcome to Love Fitness Studios podcast, live from Manchester, UK, speaking to entrepreneurs in the fitness, health and well-being industry, sharing stories about the real-life challenges and hustle. Now, over to your host, Nick Phillips.
Okay, welcome to Love Fitness Studios podcast number 16. Today we have got Shane Collins, the founder of KOBOX and the founder of Upstart Group. How is it going, Shane?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
I'm all good, thanks. Thank you so much for giving up your time today to have a chat. And we always like to start off right back at the beginning. Tell us about where you grew up, how you were as a child, what was school like. Take us back, Shane.
God, that was a while ago now. Dublin boy, born and reared. School was 5 seconds from my house. I was late every day. Inevitable, right? Dublin boy, Dublin until I was probably 25, 26 years of age. Then left, went to LA, was in and out of there for about a year, ended up in London, been here ever since.
Nice. How come LA?
Good friend of mine is a guy called Barry J, who is Barry's boot camp, which I'm sure certainly some of the guys in Manchester will know. And he'd been at me for a long time to come and give Barry's a go and teach. And I thought, 25, 26, LA, sun, teaching it out there. Why wouldn't I do it? So I gave it a go for a year, loved it, obsessed with it. I'd been doing Barry's for a while. I've been going back and forward to LA for maybe 3 or 4 years before that, and holidays and stuff, and loved the classes. And then an opportunity came up and jumped at it. So did Barry's in LA, then it opened in London. Was forward and back between London and LA and London and New York. And Barry's brought me to the States. I probably at a stage thought that I'd end up there. But no, now LA is kind of my place to go and escape and figure things out and then come back to the real world.
That is amazing. Let's just take it back a little bit then. So that is fantastic. I want to get a bit more into that in a bit. But what was you like as a child then? Was you into fitness? Did you play any sports?
Yeah, I'm, I guess the old saying goes that those who can't do teach. And that's how I got into teaching, because I suppose like everybody wanted to be a professional sports something. I'd run 400 meters, was kind of decent at that, but didn't really have the interest in it to do it properly. I wanted to play football. That's what I wanted to do. That was my favorite sport. Helped that I was fast. And running would get you out of school every now and again and get you a few medals. So kind of played around with that almost until I kind of got to college. And then you kind of had to decide, you're going to try take a run at this. Maybe could have been in the top 3 or 5 guys in the country if I really put my mind to it. If you do the math on that, the fastest Irish guy comes, 16th in international competition. So you're 4th or 5th. There's not much of a career in that. So kind of gave it up then and went to college and just start coaching. That's how I got into, I guess, teaching and fitness. Wasn't really through, being a PT, or I didn't really have any interest in that. I've never really had PTs, a handful of people over the years, but for me, it was coaching people. Started coaching kids at football and athletics, and then just developed into, some of the youth ranks and on into the kind of competitive guys as you kind of get a bit better at it, a bit more experience and get known. So yeah, for me, getting into the fitness industry was never actually about being a personal trainer or teaching classes. It was about coaching people to perform better. That's what I did when I was back home.
Nice. What were the gyms like back then, back in Dublin? What was like? It was the big gyms around, or what do you remember from sort of the way gyms were? Because obviously fitness has changed so much.
Generic.
Now.
Generic health clubs. Well, I wouldn't even say that, to be honest. Generic health clubs. that, you know, have a bit of everything, some cardio equipment. They do some Les Mills classes. There's some weights. There's all sorts of stuff, but you know, nothing all that specialized, and still probably a bit behind. Like Ireland's a fascinating place. We really looked at it a couple of years ago to try and open a studio, because I guess my generation especially, we all disappeared, you know. And we saw all the different types of gyms that you can have, and now everybody's gone back and they kind of want it, but you know, the market there probably still doesn't have the variety that it needs, and is probably still clinging on to that big health club kind of good, kind of big box cheap gyms. But certainly, you know, definitely not when I was there, and not even as much as it should now, has the variety of gyms that you would want. You know, even going and training some of the athletes like in the national stadium, and God, the gym, you know, spent loads of money out front on the arena, and then the gym out the back was a disgrace. You know, you got these prime athletes training in a gym that, you know, just not up to scratch at all. So gyms were pretty basic. You know, loads of cardio equipment, some gym equipment, and some classes happening, but certainly nothing that I guess inspired what I've done since. All that came from traveling, I guess, and probably definitely LA and New York, and seeing that and experiencing that, and thinking about it in a different way. I guess it made me think about all I really wanted to do. The reason I never really had personal training clients was I kind of couldn't be bothered with people that, you know, just wanted to get fit for their holidays or whatever. It was like, I wanted to compete. Probably knew I didn't have the talent to do either, so I worked really hard on it. You know, I didn't drink. My food was on point. Everything was. I had to be at the maximum to stand any chance.
Yeah.
So then all I wanted to do was train lads that were at that level and had that, you know, ambition to go and do stuff. And then when I went to LA, I suppose it changed everything I thought about, because then I saw that there's a huge amount of people who don't have those goals, which is grand, but just making it kind of fun and making it accessible for people actually changed everything I thought about in the fitness world. So that was the trigger point for me, I guess, moving from the only people I want to deal with are athletes to, well, no, hold on, isn't there millions of athletes all around the world that just need a different take on this thing? They need access, they need a starting point, a trigger to let them have a piece of it. So I probably went from one extreme to almost the other extreme of, all right, well, you know, those guys are finely tuned athletes, they're machines, but what about the people who don't have any idea of what they're doing, or how to get into fitness, or how to try a boxing class or a running class or a cycling class? And I guess that kind of inspired most of what I've done in the last 10 years, which is the thing to basically being, you know, trying to have the most open, accessible gyms for everybody to try a sport or an activity that they probably never would have tried before.
Yeah, amazing. It's such a nice way of putting it. So what was LA like when you got there? Was Barry's a massive big, because all I think of Barry's now is huge. I mean, I've been to the one in Manchester, amazing. Was Barry's big then, or are you talking he was just getting off?
No, it's been running a long time when I got there. I mean, I'm trying to think what year, I don't know, but it must be maybe 13, maybe 14 years ago I did my first Barry's class, thereabouts. And only stumbled upon it because I was staying just down the road. I was staying on Fountain Avenue.
Yeah.
So maybe 10-minute walk down. So I landed, I wanted to take all the classes that were there. That was kind of why I was there. I just wanted to, you know, LA used to be kind of the Mecca. That was where everything kind of kicked off. And I thought, well, I want to go and see what's happening out there and get some ideas and see what people are doing. So I just stumbled upon Barry's. And back then, you know, probably 4 studios. I think they had 2 in LA, and then they one in Irvine, and I can't remember the other one, somewhere in Orange County. Yeah. Really small, almost family-run gym, but it'd been going since '98. So, you know, it wasn't this huge thing. If you weren't in West Hollywood, you probably didn't really know about it. I always laugh about the studio. You know, there was no rubber floor. It was kind of like a lino floor that, you know, after 5 minutes when the AC kicked out and didn't work, you were slipping all over the place. There's no changing rooms. No, there wasn't. There was no changing rooms, didn't exist.
Wow.
There was one toilet, which was in the studio. So if someone had a rough night the night before and went in the middle of class, everybody knew about it. And in the corner, right beside the door, were probably, 8 lockers that had probably 100 years old. And if you had to do push-ups near them, then you had to kind of like strain your neck to get away from it. And that was and I loved it. I loved it. It was such a simple class. You ran, you lifted weights, you went home.
Was it still the same concept with the running machines? Was it not?
The exact same concept.
Was it?
The exact same concept. Concept hasn't changed. Yeah, concept before my time, I speak to Barry about how it all started. There's a picture floating around. There's all sorts of equipment in there. There's a punch bag, there's skipping ropes, there's all sorts of stuff. Yeah. But no, the concept when I met it until now, more or less the same. They've changed around the days and stuff and what they called it. They break it down by body part.
Yeah.
But it was a really humble, really incredible studio full of really incredible people. I walked in, like I said, I was taking every class. I walked in one day, couldn't find it because it kind of buried in this shopping unit. And anyway, Nicole, who became a really good friend of mine afterwards, came out and said, "What are you looking for?" I said, "I'm looking for Barry's boot camp." She said, "Come this way." So in I went, kind of told her my story. She goes, "Look, you have to come take Barry's class tomorrow." Barry teaches at 5:30, 6:30 and 8 a.m. Which one are you coming to? And I said, 8 a.m. So I walked in as like pasty, skinny Irish guy into this class. And what I guess I didn't realize, because I'd never experienced this before, was I was walking into a class and I was different because everybody there knew each other. And everybody there was turned up at 8 a.m. every single morning. So when I walked in, everybody turned around and looked and was like, "Who the fuck is this guy?"
Love that.
And why is he here?
Yeah.
Incredibly friendly people. I pick up weights. I've no idea what the weights are because they're in pounds, and I don't even know what a pound is because we deal in kilo. Barry comes straight up to me, doesn't know me, hasn't said a word to me, takes the dumbbells off me. I think I picked up 15s or something. I hadn't a clue what they were. He gives me 30s. It's arm day. I'm doing bicep curls. I'm skinny. I'm like, I'm probably 69, 70 kilos at this stage. I'm tiny. Bicep curling is coming and he's pushing down on the weights. I'm doing push-ups. He's on my back and I'm sliding all over the floor. And then I'm doing a close grip chest press and he's pushing down on the weights. I'm done. I'm finished. It's 10 minutes into class. I haven't even gotten the treadmill.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm like, why is this man bullying me so badly? And why is no one else dying as badly as I'm dying? So as he's doing his close grip chest press, push down on me, he takes away his mic and he says, are you a trainer? I said, yeah. And he says, "You can have a job here anytime."
Amazing.
And then I don't think much of it because the studio's in bits. It's not like it is now because their studios are incredible. And there's this man screaming at me and making my life hell. And he's just said, you didn't even know my name. So anyway, we get talking after class. We kind of keep in touch. He's like, "Oh, always looking for trainers, blah, blah, blah." I had no interest because I had my thing at home. My thing was, can I get coaching some guys and get to the Olympics next time round? That was my kind of plan was, can I keep going on this path? Because the Olympics are coming and maybe I can get some athletes on that. We keep in touch. Comes up for holiday time again. I kind of want to go back because I love the workout and I love the people. Everyone kind of took to me. And that was a huge part of it, the community of Barry's in LA at the time, and that class especially. So I go back and forward a couple of times. Every summer I'd go back, do classes, see what else is happening. And then at one stage he just says, "Look, we got some people who are leaving. There's going to be a space. Do you want to come out? We're opening in London. Think you'd be great for that. Why don't you come out here, teach until that happens?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go."
Amazing.
Ended up in a year. Then London happened. And then, in that time, I suppose I saw Barry's change from what was kind of a family-run business to opening in New York, which was incredible. And the studio design and delivery really changed and got much sharper. And it went from being this kind of local West Hollywood phenomenon to this US East Coast, West Coast phenomenon. Then opening in London where no one had a clue what it was. We couldn't convince anybody to pay £20 for a class when they could get their gym membership for 50 quid a month.
Yeah.
So we were kind of living off scraps with the American expats in the city who knew Barry's and who were excited, but we were turning up the classes and they were empty. There was no one there for the first year. No one ever believes us when we tell people how empty Barry's in London was in the first year, because the market didn't exist. It wasn't there. And we kind of had to make it happen. We kind of had to build this story, not just about Barry's, but just about the concept of boutique fitness, because no one had ever heard of it. And I think everyone was spooked. It's like, why is it £20 for one class when my gym membership is 50 quid? And then, of course, it exploded in the second year. You couldn't find a space in that studio. It was rammed.
It's because now I've been post-COVID. Obviously, I worked in London for a long time, and you've got your cycles, you've got your Barry's boot camps, you've got your KOBOXes, and it seems to be like second nature now. But that's a massive risk for Barry's to take that risk, isn't it? To be the pay-per-class model. It's a huge.
Yeah, but it's been going for years. Like they've been going since '98 in LA. 1998 that model existed. Before 1998 that model existed. Barry was teaching in the first Barry's studio before it became Barry's. That was a business that went out of business and they took it over. So that model's been around a long time in the States. We just never used it here. We just weren't used to it. Memberships were the thing, and that was it. So it wasn't new or revolutionary for the Barry's guys or the Soul Cycle guys, because they've been doing it forever. That was the model. That's what you did.
Yeah, bums on seats. So what was next for you then?
Well, here, definitely. Good question. I guess with KOBOX, when we opened, all we had was people telling us why it wouldn't work. Because it didn't exist, right? Boxing didn't really exist in that format, the way we kind of put it together to make it super accessible for people.
Yeah.
And we kind of reveled in that because, we said, we want to do a boxing class. They said, no one will do a boxing class. We said, watch, it's going to be at least 70% female and 30% male. And they said, no chance, you're going to be full of lads. Then we said, we're going to do it on the King's Road. And they said, it's the worst location you could ever open a boxing gym. Nobody in Chelsea will want to box. So we kind of reveled in that because you kind of have to, right? If you're going to do something good in the world, you've got to be doing something that's just a little bit different, that's slightly ahead of the curve. So yeah, for me to really stay motivated and stay in this industry, it has to be something that pushes the boundaries just a little bit. I'm super interested in hearing a bit more about what you've done with the online business, but I think online is here to stay for us, because I think that's, if I went from I only want to train elite athletes to actually hold on, now I want to introduce as many people to fitness as I possibly can. If I extend that, I suppose what the boutiques do is definitely speak to the super interest, right? The super interested in their fitness. They're definitely in the boutiques. What we do a good but not brilliant job of is reaching everybody, because we can be a little bit intimidating because, loud music, dark lights, all that sort of stuff. And we're, the boutique model is kind of based on, let's find the busiest part of town. And then get a location as close to the busiest part of town as we can. And then that's really expensive. So now we have to try and get as many people in as possible at the busy times to survive, and then try and fill in the gaps to make it work. So, if you're in, I don't know, Slough, I think it's going to be difficult for you to ever really experience a Barry's or a KOBOX class or a cycle class or whatever it might be. That's going to be hard because you have to travel into the center of town. That's long, that's difficult, that's expensive. So I think for me next, what I want to try and do is do something that can appeal to everybody. And I think, the good thing about the pandemic and lockdowns and all that sort of stuff is that it's definitely accelerated the appetite for people to try to work out at home, or actually build a proper routine to work out at home. I think people now have built routines to work out at home. I think our job as an industry, right? Our job as the boutiques was to offer something different. So the market wanted something different. They wanted variety. They wanted, ease, convenience, and they wanted to be able to come and go as they please. So if they like it, they'll keep coming. If they don't like it, they don't keep coming. And if I like it, but I need a break from it, no problem. It's not going to cost me anything. And you paid a premium for that because all of the flexibility and all of the quality and all that sort of stuff meant you paid a premium, but you were okay to do it
100%.
because you had the flexibility.
100%.
So I think our job as an industry, and I think we've seen it from lockdown to lockdown, is I think lockdown one, everyone was training. People that never trained before in their lives were training. The whole world was training, doing something.
Yeah.
And I think second lockdown, I think all sorts of reports, but by all accounts, it looks like there's probably somewhere between 30 and 50% drop off from people working out in lockdown 1 to lockdown 2. Now, I think that's our fault as an industry. And I think that's our fault because we were really sharp and really clever to get online quick, super quick. It was like overnight, studios had gone from, I don't even have a Facebook page to I now have an online studio and I'm doing Zoom classes. And that's phenomenal. And everyone deserves credit for A, getting their business right to be able to survive, and B, being able to reach people and make a difference to them and keep people sane. So I think we all deserve credit for that. I think where we lose that credit is we haven't actually adapted to what people need at home. Because what we did was rushed into it and said, right, well, what we give you in the studio, we're going to give you at home. But you can't. And there's loads of reasons you can't. People don't have the equipment. They don't have the lights and the music. So trying to recreate a club type atmosphere when you're playing Spotify through a speaker, through Zoom, isn't going to happen. You don't get the interaction, which is what people want from a studio, right? They want the interaction. You're not just there to listen to the trainer. You want to be heard by the trainer. You want to really be seen by the trainer. You're not really getting that online as well as you would in the studio. And I think the biggest thing for me is we haven't adapted the workout to say, right, no one really wants to be doing tuck jumps and burpees in their living room, especially if they live in a flat or they've wooden floors or tiles or whatever. Yes. So we're kind of throwing this studio-based workout at the world online, but people are at home in their living room going, I don't want to do man makers. I don't want to slam a dumbbells down, do a burpee, jump up and do that because it's 7 a.m. Yeah. A, I don't want to do it all the time. And B, I'm going to get evicted because everyone around me, including my wife, my husband, my kids, are going to kick me out.
Especially when you're boxing and your neighbours are looking in.
Especially when you're boxing, you're bouncing all over the gaff. Yeah, you're all over the place. So I think that's where we've probably, now need to evolve again. And it's all happened quick, so we can all be forgiven. But the boutiques adapted to give people what they needed and what they wanted at that time. I think we all need to adapt again and go, right, actually, 2 things about that. You don't want to give people the same studio experience at home because then they'll never come back to the studio. The studios are such incredible places for people to go. They become social clubs. Yeah. So you're never going to recreate it. So don't try. So what we should do now is build a product that sits alongside it. So you can come to the studio a couple of days a week and we see you and we recognize you and we love you. But what you do at home is tailored for at home and it supports what you're doing in the studio. So it doesn't all have to be at 200 miles an hour. It doesn't all have to be HIIT focused workouts. It's an at-home specific workout for people to do in that environment. And then if you want to ramp that up and come to the studio and get all of the good stuff that comes to the studio, get that there. But don't try and cram, a square peg into a round hole. Now let's give people workouts for home that work for home, that are specific and designed and curated and deliverable at home. Yeah. So I've done lots of listening, I guess, and lots of watching. And I think if you listen to people, you'll always know what they want. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's what I'll focus my time on now is extending that, I guess, want or need to give everybody a chance to get into fitness, to extend that more into the people who can't get to London and can't afford the boutiques, because I know they're expensive. And, I've been in that game for 10 or 11 years now, and I get it. They're not cheap. They can't be cheap. It's impossible for them to be cheap. Where the studios are, the standard of fit out, having to pay for the best talent, impossible for them to be cheap. They're a premium offer. Yeah. But now accept that, embrace it. It's still going to be there. Now add on to that and give the people who can't make it or can't make it all the time because they're working at home now as well, a better product for at home.
Yeah, 100%. Are you still there? I don't know what's happened.
Yeah, I'm still there. Yeah,
still there. No, I'm just listening because it's you're bringing up so many great points there. Right, that's better. So yeah, I mean, everything you've said there, we've had to do exactly the same. So we realized quite early on that people didn't want to be jumping around the room. So if you see behind my head, we've got a 70-inch screen. So we're our busiest classes by a long shot are the weight training classes. So we do everything slow tempo, splitting the body part. We put it into 4-week programs. So at the minute we're doing a push-pull legs. Do you know what I mean? So that's what we found out works really well for us. So yeah, I think it is. I think, like you say, we've got to do the best we can with the surroundings that we are in and offer that. And also, I've been in the industry for 15 years and I'm getting the best results I've ever had with any of my clients because now they've been able to train for more times a week. Instead of being able to get to the studio once or twice a week because of childcare or whatever, they're doing 5-6 sessions a week with us. So we're really trying to focus on muscle areas and getting the best out of their training. I want to go back though. I think we've jumped far too. What give you the idea for KOBOX? I've been to KOBOX. I absolutely loved it. I went to the one on Kings Road. It was a brilliant workout. I think my instructor was called Jay. I'm talking.
Oh, good Lord! The loudest man in London.
He's a wild kid.
Yeah,
he's a bundle of energy. But when we were looking for new ideas, we were trying out you guys, trying out Rebel, trying out Cycle, all the lots of pieces. But I really did have a great time at your place. So what gave you the idea? What gave you the balls to go for Kings Road? I lived in South Kensington myself, so I know how expensive it is around that neck of the wood. What give you?
You're posh.
Well, Earl's Court, I was in a bed sit.
I know, yeah, I know Earl's Court well. I stayed in a couple of places there when I moved over here and had nowhere to live. Yeah,
oh,
Earl's Court well.
I could touch my bed and I could touch my kitchen in the same like. That's how big my room was. It was tiny. It cost me about £1,000 a month as well.
Yeah.
What gave you the idea for? So you've done the Barry's thing. What gave you the idea for KOBOX? And what gave you the idea for Chelsea, basically?
Well, like most things in life, a lot of it just happens, right? So I'm back in Dublin. I'm training in my gym. A friend of mine is organising a white collar boxing night with a couple of top boxers here. He says you should get involved in this. I did. Love the training and like top guys, like Olympic level guys, kind of coaching us through that. Love the training. Did well during the training. Everything was great. Buzzing for the fight. Got hammered. Got spanked her. Honestly, Jesus. I remember one bit of advice I got was my boss at the time, the job I was in, he used to do a bit of kickboxing, and he says, "Don't do anything in the first round." He said, "Even if you see an opportunity, don't go for it. Feel out the first round." Of course, I get in there. Guys, hands down. I'm 5 seconds in. I go for it. I don't know what happened next, but I know I didn't hit him and I was reeling backwards. I didn't even see the punch coming. So I got battered. I got absolutely torn apart for 3 rounds, which was embarrassing, but loved it and loved the training. I loved it because when you run track, you essentially run or train to run straight and then turn left. And you do that on repeat and on repeat and on repeat. And it's great training. It's incredible. But I guess the boxing for me blew my mind because it was so different, so functional. You're moving different angles, different planes. The thing that amazed me was, the guy's ability to adapt to other things. I kind of struggle to adapt to other types of training. And I probably still do because, running and football training is not terribly dissimilar. Football's more physical, obviously. But the boxers could adapt. I was a fast runner and I would get training with the boys then, and we'd go on runs. I'd help them with, their conditioning training, and then they'd try to make me a better boxer, which was a difficult task. And like in the space of 4 or 5 weeks, I'd kind of be worried about running with them because they'd come on that quickly. And I thought, fuck, I mean, these guys are animals. They're machines. They can just adapt to anything. So I really got into training with the boxers and with those guys because I love the training. But then you have a problem. which is if you don't want to fight. And I had a couple of fights afterwards that I told nobody about because I didn't want anyone else to be there. I just wanted to do them. And a good mate of mine is, he's won medals, and his face wouldn't attest to that. And I thought, Christ, if you're first or second in the world and you look like that, what am I going to look like if I'm probably one of the worst in the world? So I knew I didn't want to fight. It certainly wasn't about that, but I couldn't get enough of the training, could not get enough of it. Love training the guys, and ended up, doing a bit of strength and conditioning training with some of the top kind of amateurs we have at home. And kind of forgot about all the other sports. That's all I was really interested in was training these guys for competition. But the problem you have then is if you don't want to fight, what you're training for, and how do you find an avenue to do that? And especially, I was kind of lucky because I knew these lads, but if you were the man on the street, because what I thought about was just fun. It was a really fun way to train. You're almost training harder and you don't realize you're training. That was the beauty of it for me. I'd be devastated at the end of sessions, but you kind of hadn't realized that during it. You wake up the next day, you're dead, but you don't realize that during the sessions. You're running track. You're very aware the sessions are killing you as you're doing them. Pre-season football is the same thing. So I guess, like I said, I probably, when I was in Dublin, thought, well, this is what I do. I'd have a gym for athletes, and probably in the fight game, actually, more than anything, I just train guys for competition. When I went to LA and I saw what Barry's had done, because essentially what Barry's had done was made running, the fascinating thing for me is made running accessible and fun for people who had never run before ever in their lives. And I think almost straight away, I thought, well, if I ever had my own studio, I'd do this for boxing. I try and put boxing in an environment that everybody could give it a go, because it's a great sport for people who've, bad knees and stuff, because it's not so high impact as maybe a running class and stuff. But it's pretty empowering sport. It's always fun to hit something that doesn't hit back. So I always thought, if I get a chance to do my own studio, I have to make a boxing concept work that enables everybody. Because the one thing I learned as well, it doesn't matter who you are, whoever I would like, and I'm not a pad man at all, but you'd hold pads for people, they love it. I don't think you'll ever see anyone punch pads, punch a bag, punch anything, and not get that like drive in them.
Yeah.
And that was it. That was the kickstart. And there's loads of influences for how it came to be, and why we use blue lights and the graffiti and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of that is references from around London. There's a running route down the canal by Regent's Park, and during the day it's pretty unimpressive. But if you go at night, someone has graffitied it and put blue lights on it, and that's kind of the inspiration for our KOBOX studios. Yeah. So yeah, in a simple way, I came to boxing as a total non-boxer, fell in love with it entirely. And the reason KOBOX exists and still exists was to bring boxing to people who never would have tried it in a way they probably never thought was possible. So take all the fear out of it, make it as fun as we can, and just get the lights down. Everyone's inhibitions go away. It doesn't matter if you're good or bad. That's kind of the point of it. You kind of can't be seen. So even though you're surrounded by 40 people, you just go at it as hard as you want to go at it. We'll try and make you better over time. But if you're not great, it doesn't matter. The bag's not going to hit you back. A couple of people have punched themselves. That's a true story over the years. But it's as simple as that. As a guy who came to boxing as a total non-boxer and fell in love with it, trying to do that for as many people as we humanly possibly could. And I think we did a decent job. Definitely.
How many studios now then, Shane? 2, is it?
3 studios now. Yeah, 3 studios. One in Chelsea, one in Baker Street, one in the city.
Yeah.
And then I guess there's loads of multiples of it all around the world. That's the fascinating thing for me, is that when we were trying to get going, when you say why Chelsea, we couldn't get anyone to back this thing. We couldn't find anybody that believed in it, that thought boxing was the next thing to come out. Everybody said, show me someone that's doing it before, and we couldn't, because it didn't really, title boxing gym and stuff have classes with bags and stuff, but nothing like it. They're more like, I suppose what you typically think of a boxing gym, it's smelly gloves and smelly bags and all that sort of stuff. So we couldn't get anyone to back it.
Yeah.
So my business partner came, a friend of his, a guy called Ronnie Shamoon, who was our initial investor. And we went to him and said, look, we need a few quid and we need a space.
Yeah.
And he had a shopping centre, which was his family shopping centre on the King's Road, due for demolition. There was nothing in the place. The place had been run down. There was a charity shop and a nail shop and a tailor's. And that was it. The whole place was kind of derelict. And he goes, look, I have a site out the back. We're going to knock this thing down in 3 years. Do you want to take a run at it? And I'll give you the money to do it. And you can have the space for 3 years. And if it works after 3 years, we'll do a second one. And if it doesn't work, so be it, right? We gave it a go. Yeah. So we took the space that nobody wanted. It was, I think it used to be a JD Sports and a post office. And we knocked one into the other to make the space. And yeah, we opened and thought, God, if we could even just pay this thing back in the 3 years, we'd be happy enough, because new concept, King's Road. I wasn't worried. I was buzzing about the King's Road. I really thought it was the perfect location, and everyone else was kind of panicked. And then we opened, people took to it straight away, and then we paid it all back in 13 months.
What was your competition like around there? I know there was KX. That was that.
No, that wasn't open. There was nothing.
Even open,
no, Barcore was there. Tri Yoga was there. That was it. It was us. Tri Yoga and Barcore. Now KXU didn't come for a couple of years after.
Did it not? Wow.
When we opened, it's funny, when we opened, Barry's was open. They had a couple of studios. Cycle, I think, had a couple of studios. Boom were open.
Yeah.
One Rebel were open.
Yeah.
Maybe a year before us or something. That was kind of it. And then afterwards, there was like an avalanche of studios that opened. Core Collective opened. Oh, Frame would have been open as well. Frame would have been open before us, I think, as well.
Yeah.
But then there was like an avalanche of studios opening, which was great, which kind of helped. I think if that had happened beforehand, we would have found it easier to get going to begin with. But we were still kind of in the infancy of the market in London, where, when I was at Barry's, I'd say I was approached, and this isn't a joke, 10 to 15 times a year by people who said, oh, I've got money, let's go open up a copycat of Barry's. Honestly, every month, a client that liked it. And I think people thought the only two concepts that you could do was a running class or a cycling class. That was it. Or both. Let's do both of them. It's really good. Running class and a cycling class, they both work. Let's do that. And I got approached by so many people. I just started to get kind of sick of it. And I would never have done it because Barry's my best friend.
Yeah.
And the people at Barry's are still incredibly close and good to me. And I had no interest. I had no interest in taking someone else's concept and trying to make it better or improve on it. And funny story, nobody has to date. So yeah, when I found a business partner, I said, look, I'm gonna be honest, I have no interest in it, because it was the same thing. They came and said, we have a site. We have everything. We just need somebody to run it. It's going to be, I can't remember what we're going to call it, but it's basically Barry's, but better. I said, well, okay, fair enough. Listen, I've no interest in this. And I told them why I had no interest in it. I told them, what the intangibles were that I thought made Barry's, and it wasn't having woodways and weights and red lights. That's nothing got to do with why Barry's is as successful as it is. But I said, look, I have this concept. If you want to back it, I think we could do some good things with it. And that's how it happened. Found Ronnie. Ronnie gave us the space and the money. And then fortunately, we were kind of able to pay it off straight away and crack on with new sites.
Amazing. There's a great saying, I can't remember what it is. It's you'll never be the market leader. You'll never be the market leader by copying the market leader. So there's a great saying that.
For sure. But also, it doesn't mean you can't have a successful business by doing it either. I think everyone, has gotten more upset about people trying to copy KOBOX or imitate it or whatever, develop it or whatever, than me, because I always respond and say, yeah, but it'd be much worse if no one ever tried to copy it, because it's not a good idea. It's not in demand. People don't want it. So, on a level, I wish we probably had a bit more belief once we got going and a bit more support, and we could have, opened a lot more studios in a lot more places around the world. It still doesn't make me that sad that in Saudi Arabia, Australia, Dubai, America, Canada, all over the planet, studios that are kind of following the same platform, because if you're a business person, you think and you go, right, that's a missed opportunity. That could have been us. We should have gone when we had the kind of first mover advantage and we had the brand equity to run and go with it. And then if you look back to, well, what did we want? We really wanted to bring boxing to a lot of people in a way that they never would have tried. Even if people copy it or mimic it or, take elements of it and do it, it's still a success, right? There's still people trying boxing all over the world.
Definitely. When we had the studio boxing, well, we used to do everything from weight training. We started as a boxing gym. I opened up a boxing gym with a ring and everything. The problem I had with that is it would fill up with gypsies all the time because we were on like an industrial estate. So they'd turn up, say, "Oh, you got a boxing ring? We'll pay to come in." Well, then just ended up in scrap. So I thought, you know what, this is not what I want. So we got rid of that. Then we put 30 bags in there, and boxing by far was the most popular class. It was people just love it, don't they? People just love hitting the bags.
It's fun.
Yeah. So I always like to go back to this question. March 26th, when Boris Johnson comes onto the BBC and says, right, all gyms must close. What is going through your head? What are you thinking when he says all gyms must close? What's the first thing you're thinking?
People. First thing was people. I didn't worry too much about business. I didn't worry too much about anything. You got to think of the people. We had probably at the time, best part of 100 people who rely on the business to pay their mortgage and to buy their food and do all sorts of that stuff. So the first thought, only thought, was the people. That's it. That's all you have to do, is try to look after your people. It's one of the principles, I think, of what we try to do as a business, is to try to look after your people as best you can. That gets more difficult as you grow. It's certainly a bone of contention for me and certainly my board. I think very different views on that. But no, looking after the people, looking after the people who are employees, the people who are self-employed, because that's been the real difficulty. I think the real difficulty of this lockdown and all those measures in the fitness industry is the people who are on 0-hour contracts. Actually, we could look after them with furlough and stuff, but a lot of the trainers, mainly actually because they want it like that, they want to be their own business so that they can do other things and get sources of income. Very difficult to help them, and it was. I knew it was going to be a big point for us, because everyone's important, but you can't open gyms without trainers. It's impossible. You can't run trains without train drivers. If you're trying to run a football team and you've no football players, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I worried about the trainers. For them. Listen, I suppose we didn't know. I suppose we looked at it, and I know someone who works for someone in Parliament, and I was straight on text, was like, look, you got to give some insight on this. I remember we were saying, look, worst case scenario, I think your gym will probably close for 2 or 3 months, and then you'll be back to normal. And that you can kind of survive, right? Everybody takes a bit of a holiday. Most people have savings. We're a year down the line now, and I think the people who've suffered probably the most are the trainer group. And listen, a lot of those guys have done incredible things too. That's where you'll see a change as well in the boutique world, I think. A lot of people who, like you, instantly snapped and went, I'm going to get straight into this and do online stuff. And now they've their own followings, and they probably think, well, maybe I don't want to go back to the gyms because I can do this on my own time and my own terms. But no, the first thought was the people. You have to look after the people. If you can't look after your people, you got no chance. So that was it, because you can only control certain parts of it, right? You sit back and you think, right, is there demand for this product on the 15th of March? Yeah. So it's not like we don't have people who don't want to do it. If we have to close, I can't control that. If we have to reopen and we're only allowed half the amount of people in, I can't control that. So it's impossible for me to impact any of that. My job is to make it as safe as possible. And then my job is to, start arguing back with the people that can cause you trouble. And that's really your landlords. Can you strike a deal with landlords? And I think ultimately when this thing comes out, the people who are able to strike deals with their landlords will stay in business. And the people who can't will either be shut down by their landlords or choose not to keep going because they'll look at it and say, there's no point in me trying to struggle to keep the studio going if I have to pay back a year of rent and more. I'll just shut the studio and I'll find one down the street for half the price, and I'll start again and actually make money out of it instead of spending the next 15 years working this site to pay the landlord.
Yeah.
So I never had to worry about the industry. I never had to worry about the concept. I never had a worry that all of a sudden people wouldn't want to work out. None of that. So I removed all of that stress and worry from my mind, and then just get into the tangibles of, are we going to be able to keep people alive and paid and have some income coming in? And then it's a game, right? Then you react to whatever happens in the game, and that's all anyone's been doing since March last year.
Just seeing what happens. Completely out of our control. So where do you see, what do you see the fitness industry, say 2025? What do you think the future? Obviously Peloton have absolutely smashed it. I know a few of the American companies now gone very heavy on the online, building studios and giving it the best. I actually did one of their classes last week, and it was all right. It wasn't amazing. Where do you see the future? Where do you see in the next 3 years what will fitness, the industry, look like?
Yeah, I think you can never go 20 or 25 years ahead in the fitness industry. I think it's impossible. I think you always got to work in those 3 to 5 year windows. I think it all depends on how the working pattern changes. My take on it, from speaking to everybody I know, is that the way people work is going to change. And that's going to change everything. And that's a real impact on our economy, because we're a services economy in the UK. So, Pret and all those businesses that really support everything that happens around Canary Wharf and, and around Manchester city centre and all these city centres, we're actually a services economy. So how does that work if on any given day, let's say 10% of people just won't have jobs, right? That's probably likely. We're going to have, probably 10% unemployment at least. So that's 10% less people in a city centre on any given day. And then you factor on top of that I think maybe on any given day, with people working from home, there'll be 25 or 30% less people in town. So you might end up 60% of any given day capacity. There'll still be people in jobs, they'll still be there. Then what might happen is, if you're working 3 days a week, you might do the very British thing of the charade of, look how hard I'm working whilst I'm here, and be less inclined to sneak out to, get long lunches or do your workout at lunchtime or whatever. Some people will. And you might be more likely to say, right, on the 2 days that I'm at home, as long as I get my work done, I'm actually a bit freer to go out and do things and maybe take a gym class. So I think it'll be really interesting. I think there's certainly a market for a kind of micro gym model, which aims at people in their communities. So it might not have all singing, all dancing lights and bells and whistles as a studio might do in the middle of town, but it gives you a really good workout with a good trainer and a good concept. And you're okay with that because it's probably a bit cheaper, but it's just so convenient. You can walk down to it. So, I think there's a space for micro gyms in the community where people live, very much supported by a kind of digital framework, something that people can do. Digital is here to stay. I think anyone that hasn't already realized that digital is a part of what you're going to be doing is dead. They should give up now, because you're not willing to move with the times. You're clinging on to the past, which is what the big box gyms did and why they suffered when the boutiques came along. And they might do well again. They might do well again because they offer value in big box gym. I always compare a big box gym to a cruise liner, right? You have a cinema and you have a casino and you have a show, a musical, but it's not quite as good as a musical on the West End. It's not quite as good as a casino in Las Vegas, but everything's there, right? Yeah. Everything's there. And if you want a bit of everything, you're happy enough with it. And then the boutiques were more like speedboats. I want something that is fit for purpose and does one thing really, really, really well. Yeah. So they might do well, but the one thing that we all have to acknowledge is that we have to offer people something else. So if you're a boutique, you can still be the best boutique and have the best studio and the best experience, because people are going to want it. They're going to need it. I think people are dying to get back to the gyms. I think they're dying to get back to the gyms and forget about the workout. They're dying to have a place to go. They're dying to see people again. They're dying for that kind of group, kind of herd mentality of being in the pack. So I don't think there'll be a struggle for studios, providing they're allowed to get enough people in to survive and they can strike deals with their landlords. I think social distancing will be with us for a while in the gym game. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. But if I had to make a prediction, I think micro gyms will do well. I think good, specific online content will do well. But having said that, I don't see any reason why the studios and the big box, whether they're cheap or luxury gyms, can't also survive. But the one constant is we all have to change. We all have to evolve. We all have to listen to what the customer wants to give it to them.
Definitely. Really, really good points there. Very knowledgeable about these areas. I love the way. Did you go to business school, or is it just from your network?
I did.
Yeah.
No, I did. When I went to college, I did property economics, so I did an economics degree, and then I came out and worked for one of the big property developers in Ireland for about 6 years, and then all of those got wiped out, and that was kind of the serendipitous moment of that business was kind of being run into the ground. I had a little gym that I was working on myself. And then LA came calling, so it was all kind of good timing. But yeah, was fortunate to be in an incredibly entrepreneurial business for 6 years with incredible people. And I guess I was the puppy of the pack, so I learned a lot in that time for sure. Yeah.
Amazing. 3 more questions.
Yeah.
Any regrets? Anything you would have done different throughout your whole sort of building the business up?
Yeah, probably some that I can't talk about.
Yep.
But it goes back, I guess, to people, right? I think if you have a vision, you have to find other people that share that vision. If my vision was to build KOBOX to be the biggest boxing club in the world, and I thought the way you do that is to treat the people in the business incredibly well, like ridiculously well, because then they might help spread that message for you. As you grow and you kind of run into difficulties and you get into funding rounds, you then sometimes think, well, if we get the money, nothing else matters because we have this amazing team and we're able to do all these things. And I think that was the big lesson for us, is that we got money along the way. That money didn't come with I guess the same values or the same vision that we had as a business to the reason why we succeeded. If you're doing well and you're building this brand, you're still very much in the stage of building a brand, and you then give away some control on the decisions that you can make and how you're able to build a business. I think that's my one regret was everyone on the boat has to have the same vision going in the same direction, because if even one person is trying to swim the other way, God, that's difficult. God, that's difficult. And then it leaves you slightly powerless to be able to implement and do the things that you want to do. Keep the values of the business, give people what they want, because people become, I guess, entitled over time, and sometimes rightly and sometimes wrongly entitled. But if you've got someone there and they've been there for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and you can't really give them something new to work on, or a new role, or some way of progressing, you're going to either have someone that's upset or leaves. And if I guess at the top level there's disagreement or there's unrest, I think that just filters through the business. So maybe that taking money is one thing, but you also have to take people who have bigger rows or bigger oars than you to help you row. Because if they have bigger oars than you and they're pulling the other direction, trouble, because this is a people business. all of them. If you're in the fitness game and you don't understand that it's a people game, and you don't really embrace it, because understanding it means you have to act on it. And if you don't really act on it, and you don't get that, without people, you're nothing. And people are clients, and people are staff and stakeholders. You have no chance. But it's all a learning, right? Everything's a learning. I look at it and I think, God, is KOBOX still a great business? Yes. Is it still a great concept? Yes. Does it still have great people in it? Yes. Does it have problems? Yes. Same for any business on the planet. So everything's a learning, everything's an experience, everything's a chance to do better on it next time.
So that ties me up to my second to last question. Would you do it all again?
In a nanosecond.
Would you?
In a nanosecond, of course. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't? And here's why. Even if I see people get so frustrated in the fitness game because maybe they started a fitness page and only has 6 people on lives or something. You're making a difference to 6 people. So it doesn't matter that Joe Wicks has 1 million. That's fine. There's a good chance that at your 6, you're making a bigger difference to those 6 than he is to the 1 million, because you know those people and you understand and you notice when they're missing. If Joe Wicks goes from 1 million to 999,999, he probably doesn't know that one person. I'm not hating on Joe Wicks because that's the game in the fitness industry. Hate on Joe Wicks. I think he's brilliant.
He's brilliant.
And I think the only reason people hate on him is because he's so brilliant. But anyway, that's a separate story. Yeah. But people stop because they think they're not making a big enough impact. If you're making an impact to one person by helping them get more active, you've won. We've got the best part of 100,000 people signed up to KOBOX. So we've, on some level, made a difference. But some people won't have liked it for sure and will never come back. But we've impacted hundreds of thousands of people. There's people who I know knew nothing about boxing who come in. Chelsea housewives, I love them, but they'll come in and want to know about the guy that's fighting this weekend because they've seen it on the news. How are you not happy that you've brought that to the world? Yeah. People who've come in and, we never got into the, we'll do fights or white collars, but we had incredible trainers who would help people or send them to other gyms. We got a lot of hate from the boxing world. When we opened, we got a lot of hate from the boxing world because we weren't proper boxing and we were this, we were that, and whatever. And then we start sending people to them because once they wanted to fight, we introduced them. Then they wanted to fight, we'd send them to Islington or whatever, any of the boxing clubs, All-Star. And I think then, the trainers we had were respected guys. One of our guys has his first pro fight coming up. He's been sparring with AJ, Big Steph Boxing, if anyone wants to find him on Insta.
Nice.
So how do you not get respect when you got guys? We had a guy called Ian Streets, who people know, he's got a podcast called Fighting Words. If you ever want to hear anything about boxing, there's nothing about boxing the guy doesn't know. So how are you not happy that those guys had a platform to reach a whole load of people? And there's now, I think anytime you build a business, your job is to make a difference, right? Your job is to make the world a better place. And that sounds like a flowery, nothing nonsense thing that everybody says. But Heinz beans make a difference. They make a difference in the world. And here's why, because one day soon I'll wake up and all I'll want, the only thing that will make me happy is beans on toast. It's true. Someone right now, all they want is beans on toast. So on that basis, Heinz beans have changed the world because for one person, they're making that difference to them that day. We do the same thing when I look at it. And now more than ever, what I know is if you build a business, your one job is to be missed if you're gone. So if you didn't exist, I would miss Heinz beans. I would really miss, if I could never have another Heinz bean in my life would be worse. That's the truth. And what I know for sure is that whatever's happened, and lots has happened with KOBOX over the last year, 18 months, if you take away all the nonsense at certainly my level, it's been gone and people have missed it. And that's all you can ever hope for if you're a brand or a business, is that if you didn't exist or you weren't there or you're not available, you're missed. So for all the goods and all the bads, I think that's probably the easiest way to sum it up, is that for basically a year now, people have missed it and they still miss it. So you can't, no matter what's happened, be upset with that.
Yeah, brilliant. Last question then. We've been on an hour and I feel like we could just carry on chatting all day. Right, we are right outside Old Trafford football ground. I know you're a massive fan. What is going on? What is going on? Is Ollie's wheels fell off or?
The hardest question. I'm a massive Red. I'm a season ticket holder. And grown up in Dublin, you want to go right back to the start. Grew up in Dublin. All my family are City fans because I've got cousins that live in Manchester. So they're all City fans. And my godfather is a Man United fan, and that's part of the story. My dad are a Man United fan.
Yeah.
I watched Man United win and everything on telly my whole childhood. I'll move here. A mate of mine has a season ticket. He's thinking of giving it up. I say, don't give it up. I'll go to every game. What's my first game? David Moyes' first game. So my first proper game at Old Trafford is David Moyes.
I was there.
Well,
yeah.
8 years of being a season ticket holder, but 7 really, because this last year hasn't counted. And I think I might be, forget about Ollie, I think I'm potentially the reason that we haven't won the league, because since I turned up, we've won nothing. Now, on Man United, here's my take. I love Ollie. I think he's actually done an incredible job. If you look at our club and how we've always run and how Fergie ran the club in his later years, he was the manager, he wasn't the coach. And if we could get that model going with Ollie as manager and bring in a top, unbelievably top-rate coaching team, which I'm not sure we have, then I think Ollie has a chance. The harsh truth is that I don't know if the top level coaches would come in for Ollie in the way they did for Fergie. So we might be stuck in a cycle of always being too good for Ollie to get fired or quit, but not quite good enough to compete at the top level, which will devastate me. But I think Ollie's done an incredible job at weeding out the nonsense in our club and buying players that actually want to be there. I think we're just slightly tactically naive, and we keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again. So if I was super harsh, if I was the CEO of the club, I would give Ollie the chance, but I would demand a top level coaching team. And if that didn't happen really soon, if we couldn't attract those people, I'd have to get someone who could.
Oh, that's a good point. Good point. I completely agree. Michael Carrick, is he the man for the job? I don't know. I feel like...
Well, listen, they could be. I guess my point is Kieran McKenna is younger than I am, and he might be a top coach in the making. And you know, Carrick's a great player and certainly a clever player. But are they the top guys in the game now? I'm not sure they are. I know Mick Phelan's there, and again, I think great kind of man manager. I don't know because I don't know enough about him. Is he an incredible tactician? He could be. So sorry, Mick, if someone can correct me if they know him better than I do. But you know, I look at it. I think how Fergie managed the club. He was the man manager. He stood back, let everybody else coach, and we adapted. We changed all the time. The coach team changed. It frustrates me that we keep giving away the same goals all the time. And if Bruno isn't at it, we tend to struggle.
I think that's...
There doesn't seem to be much of a plan B.
He doesn't seem to have one at the minute, does he? He seems to be picking and choosing between the keepers. I just feel like it's the consistency in it. It's just, we had that great run, didn't we? We were sat at the top, smiling down. But yeah, we'll have to see. It's still a good season. I feel like we can still, if we finish top 3, I'll be happy with that. But let's...
It's the hope that kills you.
Yeah, especially with the Blues close to us.
I don't know if it's because of the family thing. City winning has never hurt me as much as someone like Liverpool winning, or even Chelsea. I don't know why I really hate Chelsea or Arsenal back in the day, but now I kind of feel sorry for Arsenal. I never thought I'd say that. But City hurting me, or City winning, has never really hurt me, except for this. Here's the last thing to finish on. I'm in LA. It's the last day of the season, the Aguero day. It must be 7 a.m. I've gotten up to live stream this thing because it's at 5 or 6 or 7 a.m. It's all happening. We've won at Blackburn. I ring my brother-in-law because I'm watching the City game, and I think they were 2-1 down. Were they 1-0 down or 2-1 down? I think
they were crying on the telly. They're crying.
I'm on the phone with my brother-in-law. It goes 2-2. Doesn't matter. We've still won the league. My internet glitches for 5 seconds. I'm on the phone to my brother-in-law. His obviously hasn't. So I'm watching. The clock is ticking down. And on the other end of the phone, I just hear this big sigh. And he goes, "Oh, they've done it." I didn't really hear what he said, but I thought I heard him say, "They've done it," because he's obviously about 7 seconds ahead of me. So then I have to watch the next 7 seconds, kind of knowing that they've scored their third goal. I was devastated. Followed by the best thing, which is no one in LA cares. So I closed my laptop, I went out, and it was like it didn't fucking happen.
That's the beauty of football, isn't it? I love
But
that.
it was the worst. It was the worst 7 or 8 seconds of my life watching what I thought was live, knowing that I was pretty sure they'd done it.
Shane, love it. Absolute legend. I'll put all your angles in the bottom of this. Thank you so much, mate. Thank you so much for giving me the time.
Of course, anytime, my friend.
In Salford, Manchester, get yourself to the studio. I'd love to do this on a personal one-to-one. Do round 2 because I feel like we've only just touched the surface with your story.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly missing Manchester. So as soon as I'm allowed, I'll be up.
Amazing. Thank you so much.